Good morning, Tom. Again, own your own health. We're going to be right back. Good morning, Tom. Again, here, Own Your Own Health. Just want to say thank you for everybody that might be watching this. We'll just encourage you to tag and share us with your audience, your friends. The whole purpose of Own Your Own Health is a story behind this, but the whole purpose is really to just bring a different level of awareness of taking ownership of your health. We live in a culture and a society that we're challenged with our health. And there's many reasons. We're not going to get into all that. My wife and I, we have a wellness center, and I've been exposed to holistic practice and seen the benefits for myself personally and her clients and other people that we've shared holistic approaches to all different elements of health. And so that's my passion and mission is to just bring a new level of awareness to optimizing health. And I don't believe a lot of people really understand what health is. We haven't experienced health or recognized health maybe in a long, long time. So, and it's only through awareness that we have an opportunity to make changes in any area of our life. So today, I'm really excited for the guest I've invited in today. I'm going to give some kudos to Ken Walls and the Grow Live Academy for helping me learn how to do live streaming and in around my mission, my purposes in life. And I caught one of Ken's interviews with this wonderful person. I just was going to jump on for a few minutes to get an essence of what's going, and she captivated me. I stayed for the entire interview, and I says, this lady, this person's message needs to be heard. It was perfectly in alignment with Own Your Own Health. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce my guest today, Dr. Kristy Vanacore. Are you ready?
Hi, Tom.
Good morning, Kristy.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thanks for being here. What I always like to do is just starting out is just share a little bit about yourself, personal as much as you want to share your journey, where you are, and then we can talk some specifics in and around what you're doing. And, you've got a book out there. We'll talk about your book as well. So it's all yours, Kristy.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. And, your show, I keep looking at the title, Own Your Own Health. It's so in alignment with my message and with my mission, which is to teach people how to be self-healers, right? To teach people how to reconnect with their essential self-healing capacities that are innate to all of us. So that is my mission. So I love your show. I love what you're doing. And I just feel really grateful to be here and us working together to share this message. And this whole journey, for me really started with a very traumatic birth of my first son. And this was about, 14 years ago. And I had this really traumatic birth experience and I almost lost my life, almost lost my baby. It was really traumatic. And what it did was it really became the catalyst. It triggered all past traumas that I had experienced that, I thought I processed, I thought I dealt with, I thought I got over. And all of a sudden, this happens and I became incredibly sick, physically, psychologically. I had always suffered with pretty debilitating anxiety from the time I was a child. And I, just sort of got through it, went through it, did some therapy here and there. Nothing really worked and just kept chugging along, just kept pushing through, or as I like to say, bulldozing through. And then I have this baby, and it's supposed to be the most incredible time of my life. And instead, I am completely sick and feeling like I'm dying and broken. And I entrusted my health and my healing and that of my child's to these doctors, right, who claimed to be able to help me. And I remember going to my doctor shortly after having my baby and telling her, how I felt, everything from horrific heart palpitations to, stomach issues to, the list goes on of really horrible things. And there I was trying to nurse a baby, take care of a newborn, right? I had just opened a health and wellness center. So I was trying to be, this entrepreneur and a business person. And I was stopped dead in my tracks. And the doctor looked at me in a very patronizing way and said, "Oh, you're just tired. You need to hire a nanny." And then I went to a different doctor, and she promptly wrote me a prescription for Prozac and said, "Here, just take this. It'll solve all your problems." And I had to keep insisting. I said, "No, you don't understand. There's something wrong in my body. I know it. I feel it. I'm very attuned to my body. There is something wrong. Please check my blood, do something." And I really had to beg. And finally they said, "Okay, we'll draw your blood." And they did. And lo and behold, a few days later, I call for the results, and they tell me, "Okay, you have, they don't say what I have. They say, "We're calling in a prescription to your pharmacy for a thyroid medication." And I said, "A thyroid medication?" I said, "Well, okay." And they said, "Yeah, we're going to call in some Synthroid, and you'll be fine in no time." And I said, "Synthroid?" So a little bit of background, I was having symptoms that I knew because of my training as a holistic psychologist, right, as a health and wellness practitioner. I was having a lot of symptoms consistent with hyperthyroid, which is when your body is making too much thyroid hormone, right? Well, Synthroid is prescribed for someone who's not making enough. So I said to her, this doesn't seem right to me. Can you please send me a copy of my labs? And she said, "Well, why do you want that? I don't understand." And this nurse was annoyed with me, wanting to get me off the phone to get to her next patient, probably had 25 lines of people on hold. And I was adamant. I kept insisting. There was something in me that just said, "No, Kristy, don't back down, right? Advocate for yourself." As sick as I was, as tired as I was, I remember my baby screaming in my arms, crying. And I just, had the wherewithal to advocate. And she sent me my labs. And again, I knew how to read this because of my training. And I said, "Wait, she's wrong. I'm right." My TSH, or anybody out there who knows how thyroid works, my TSH was a 0. It's an inverse relationship. The lower the number, the more thyroid hormone in your body. I was flooded with thyroid hormone, and she was giving me Synthroid. And I could have had a heart attack and much worse had I taken that. So I called them back, and I'm saying all of this. And she told me, "You're wrong. You're really just tired. Take that prescription we gave you and you'll be fine." And anyway, that really started the process of me saying, "Okay, wait a second here. No one is the expert on my body like I am. And nobody is going to advocate for my health and wellness like I will." And so that started this journey that really took my healing journey, my personal healing journey, to the next level. And then also took the work I was doing with clients to the next level, right? So it was sort of this parallel path that I was walking on with my clients. And that really began what I call my rewilding. And rewilding is a word. It's a cool word. It gets a lot of attention, right? But it's actually a word that has roots in land and animal conservation research. So conservationists started studying and wanting to understand why animals who had once been wild and now were domesticated started acting very strange and becoming very sick with illnesses that could not be readily identified or could not be readily cured. And so, these researchers said, well, I wonder if we take these animals and return them back to their natural state. Wonder what would happen. And lo and behold, they did that. And suddenly these animals who had become incredibly aggressive, unnaturally so, were no longer that way. Suddenly these unexplainable and incomprehensible ailments in their bodies were resolved, and the animals were thriving. And they called this process the animals rewilding. And they did this with land too. They looked at lands that were dying and, not flourishing, and said, what happens if we remove all human intervention and just let these lands do what they organically are meant to do? And suddenly they were thriving again. They were flourishing again and blossoming. So this concept of rewilding became known to me. I love to study anthropology. I love to understand the history of, where we came from, what are our roots. I practice a lot of shamanic healing, which is one modality that really saved me. And it's all about, again, reconnecting with our essence and with nature and where we came from. And in my studies, that's how I found this concept of rewilding. And it became very clear to me that was what was needed in that moment for myself, right? In that moment, I was motivated first and foremost with healing myself, because I had this little baby in my arms, right? Who needed me to be at my best for him. So I was motivated by healing myself, helping myself, and then quickly realized, okay, I am going through this, and it's no different than I knew I had gone through anything in my life previously. I'm going through this so that I can help other people go through it, right? I am put here on this planet to heal people through the light of my wounds. I've known that since I was a young child. It was how I made sense of the trauma that was happening, for me, not to me. It was really a gift. And so I took that rewilding and I said, okay, it's time to begin my rewilding. How can I return to the essence of what it means to be human and help others do the same? And that was really beginning to understand and look at life so differently, and realize just how far removed as a society we've come from the way we were built to be, right? And so I began, through this research, through this practice, through my own personal healing journey, as well as walking others on the path, that there was something happening called evolutionary mismatch. And evolutionary mismatch is really the idea that the current conditions that we're living in are in direct odds with our inherent genetic blueprinting.
Yeah.
Right? So the way that we're being asked to live in this modern day time does not match our capacity, right? And that is what is causing people to be sick. Right now, it's estimated, and I would say this is an underestimate, it's estimated that 88% of people are walking around with chronic health conditions. And chronic health conditions, these are physical ailments, right? Autoimmune disease, cancers, the list goes on. Psychological illnesses, anxiety, depression, attention deficit disorders. I put these things in air quotes, right? Mood disorders. We are experiencing a true health crisis. And this has been going on for a long time. This is a true pandemic. This is a true epidemic, right? Yeah. And if we examine the trends and we examine how our society has evolved and the advancements in technology and all of the, advancements that are supposed to make our lives easier and better, they're actually making us really sick.
Yeah.
And so I quickly began to realize, even in my own life, right? Things like, where I was not rising with the sun or setting with the sun. I was getting rarely any sunlight, where I was dehydrated and understanding, I didn't know hydration meant more than just drinking water. I had no idea how the nervous system really worked. And I was a doctoral, I have a doctoral degree in clinical psychology and in school psychology. And I was taught about the nervous system maybe in one class, but the nervous system is the essence of who we are as humans.
Yeah.
And no one ever taught me that nervous system dysregulation is the root cause of every ailment out there. So it was like, wow, as I was learning and understanding and walking myself down this rewilding path and helping others do the same, my eyes were open. And I always tell people, you can't unsee what you've seen, right? So as the veil was lifting and I was becoming aware, right? And I was becoming, it's like all these revelations, and it was like, okay, this isn't rocket science here, but why isn't anyone talking about this? Why is our system of medicine still focused on discrete symptoms and alleviation of those symptoms with pills and things that are outside of ourselves?
Yeah.
Right? Why, as medical professionals, do we still look at the human body as separate parts? Right? You go to a cardiologist for your heart. You go to an endocrinologist for your endocrine system. Why is nobody looking at the whole? Right? Why do we still separate out mental illness from physical illness when we know the mind and body is connected?
Yes.
Right?
And usually we have one symptom. There's a thread that goes through everything. We're out of homeostasis. We're out of balance. Our bodies are always trying to get in a state of neurochemistry. I mean, we won't get into a bunch of stuff, but like, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I'm a nerd. I like to read stuff.
I am too.
But just knowing that we were created to be able to, given the right resources, created to get ourselves in balance, to heal and make ourselves well, whatever well is today. I think a lot of people, and I'm including myself, don't understand what feeling good is, what healthy is. Right. I ask people all the time, oh, I'm healthy. Well, good. Do you have any issues about your sleep? Oh, I can't sleep well.
Yeah.
I'm taking ibuprofen because I got pain. And they just go on and on. We don't know what health is until you experience it. Maybe an aha, like me cutting meat out of my diet, how I immediately go, wow, now I feel different. Your body will tell you if it's good for you or bad for you, what you put in your mind. It resonates with your body. But
yes.
I know we got into this area where you are now, but you went to school. Where'd you go to school? You got your PhD in clinical psychology. Is that you got your
yes.
doctorate? You were what? Just going down the normal path of the traditional model of psychotherapy, and then it's your own experience. It transitions. So what have you seen being schooled and educated with a traditional Western approach, and what do people need to know about psychotherapy, and what is holistic psychology? There's trying to draw a separation so people get a better grasp, because we all have our own view and opinion or basic understanding. So maybe you can get some clarity there for people.
Yeah, of course. So yes, I was trained as a traditional Western, medical psychologist. So I was in a doctoral degree of psychology program. It was a dual doctorate in clinical psychology and school psychology, so that I could work with all age groups across the lifespan and in different settings. And, when I was a student in my program, it was very clear to me right away that there was a piece missing. And I didn't exactly know what that piece was, but I knew something was missing. And part of why I knew that was because I knew what I was experiencing at the time. Again, I was suffering from pretty debilitating anxiety, even while I was in grad school, that I was just trying to manage on my own. And so I was, looking to help myself, again, knowing that I was to help others through the light of my own wounds. And there was something missing. And I became kind of the rebel in my class because, I would be the one raising my hand, like, wait a minute, I want to challenge that, or wait a second, I have a question about something else. And they didn't want to hear from me. They just wanted to teach the very traditional sort of medical model of symptoms, diagnosis, right? And what is the therapy? And the therapeutic modalities that I was exposed to, right? So there is traditional psychotherapy, which most people refer to or know as talk therapy. And so there was that model. And there was the model of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is essentially the model where we examine our cognitions, our thoughts, and we look at how those influence our behaviors and the outcomes of those behaviors, right? And then there were other models as well, dialectical behavioral therapy, acceptance commitment therapy, all these other therapies. And again, they all had a piece that was missing. And I myself had been going to talk therapy at the time. And, while it was nice to have someone objective to talk to, right? It was not a family member or a friend or, anything of that nature. After a while, I always make the joke and say, how much can you talk about how your mother and father screwed you up? Like at some point, you're just talking about the same thing over and over again, and there is no resolution, right? My behaviors weren't changing. I was still up all night with anxiety. I was still having panic attacks, right? I was still, doing things with counting numbers and lines on the sidewalk, all these obsessive compulsive things. So the talking wasn't helping. And in my clinical practicums at the time, where, we got to work with patients, as they called them, in our clinics and in different hospital settings, it wasn't working for them either. And then there was the cognitive behavioral therapies where, I'm sitting with a patient doing checklists and how often did you feel anxious this week? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, draw a chart. And yet, they would do all of those things and leave my office and go home and still be suffering. So that wasn't working, right? And so I realized, again, there was this piece missing. One of the biggest pieces that I knew was missing was this very sort of personal, interrelational approach, right? So I was taught to be a blank slate. You sit with your patient and you say nothing about yourself. And that for me was like, I don't know how to do that because I've always been an open book. I've always believed in the power of story. And I know that story is healing, right? If we look back at the ancient Greeks, the Asclepius model, some of our first pillars of medicine, it was all about narrative medicine. Our story is healing. Yet I was being trained to withhold my story and say nothing. And then just, at the end of the hour, whoop, time is up. See you next week. Wasn't working for me. And dare I say it, I'm a hugger, and, the power of touch is so incredible, right? And I would want to hug. The first time I hugged in one of my practicums, I was being watched through a one-way mirror by a supervisor. And I went to hug a little boy whose father just died. And my supervisor came running in and said, "What are you doing? You can't do that." And I thought, oh my gosh. So I somehow knew from then, although I didn't know this word rewilding, I somehow knew from then that it was going to be my mission to rewild this field because it needed to be changed, right? It needed a big change. So as I moved along, right, I realized, again, focusing on symptoms, focused on mind and body as separate processes. People are not getting better. People are also becoming disenfranchised, right? So the traditional medical model of psychology was not empowering people to take their lives into their own hands. It was teaching them how to be more dependent, right? And, and you're getting people who already feel fragile and vulnerable, and they're wanting to feel boosted and feel good about themselves and take control of their lives and reclaim their passion and their purpose. And we're telling them they have to be dependent on a pill, or they have to be dependent on weekly therapy, right? And we're not teaching them how their mind and body work. We're just focusing on symptoms and some, quick fixes and band-aids for how to resolve those symptoms. And again, people were not getting better, they're getting worse, right? So it's ineffective. There's no interpersonal connection. There's no place for anyone's story, right? And it's completely disempowering. And so that really propelled me to embark on this journey again of shifting the way we even look at psychology. Now, the word holistic psychology, right, is interesting. And that word holistic means a lot of different things to a lot of people. Some people hear that word and they're like, ugh,
It's something woo. It's a woo thing, whatever that is, right?
Yeah, it's woo-woo. One of my best friends teases me and she's like, oh, that's your earthy, crunchy granola stuff, right? So, but what I mean by holistic is that it's really looking at the whole person, okay? The connection between mind and body, and dare I bring up spirit, okay? So it's the connection of the three that makes us whole. And it's also looking at how, someone said, woo woo, love it, how those processes work together, right? And how we can really reclaim the essence of who we are in this way, right? It's living our lives and getting to a place where we can be whole, not just heal, but where we can be whole. All parts of us are welcome, right? And how we can work with all of those parts by taking control and being empowered. So that is what I mean by holistic psychology. It's not a perfect word or a perfect description. And that gives people just enough to say, okay, there's psychology, there must be some science in there, right? But then maybe there's this other piece, So I look at, for me, holistic psychology as the intersection of science with soul, right? It's taking that ancient wisdom that our ancestors knew and did so well, and fusing it with modern scientific paradigms, right? So you see, it's all the fusion of all these parts that create this beautiful whole of what it means to be human. And so that's what I mean by holistic psychology today. And that's kind of how I got down this path. And it's what healed me. And that's what I model for people, right? I say all the time, I can't ask people to go deeper than I've ever been willing to go myself, right? I have to show people that I've been there and I've lived it. And, I've had to unlearn a lot of what we've been taught, right? So in my teachings, I host a lot of classes and I call them the unlearning educational series, right? Because it's all about looking at the way we've been conditioned to believe, for instance, that our health and wellness is not in our control, right? For instance, things like, an autoimmune disease or an anxiety disorder is a life sentence. All of these things, and I could go on and on, are simply untrue. But believing in these things, first of all, makes a lot of people a lot of money out there, right? Yeah. It makes us easier as a population to be controlled, okay? But we have these self-healing capacities that are innate to us. And if we just learn how we work, we can make them work for us. And so that's really been my mission, is to teach that to as many people as possible so that we can help each other and be whole.
Yeah. I just want to say, coming from a traditional education, culturally programmed, how to look at health and look at medicine and look at doctors. And a friend of mine is a retired anesthesiologist, and we've had some really deep conversations about the industry in a whole.
Yeah.
And he says, you made that comment that the doctor, you challenged the doctor on the labs. He says, unfortunately, a lot of the doctors are, MD stands for medical deities. Their egos are in the way. They know it all. And that's a sad state, because that doesn't serve. That doesn't serve anybody, is being closed minded. But I like what you said is that, there's a conflict in traditional Western approach to health, whether it be psychological health or whether it be physical health. um, with that Western model. When you deal with your patients that come in with those barriers, those resistance, how do you break? I think it's important. How do you? I believe questions are probably the best way to get people to engage. But what do you do to help them open up to be more aware to a new modality or a way? Because yoga, I like what is science, wisdom, ancient wisdom, and science. Because we know if you do any research that meditation and yoga and all these things, there is a direct scientific relationship to what goes on in our body. Yeah. And it's not woo-woo, and it's not just feel good and all those things. But what do you do to help that person make that mind shift? I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah. So the key word in what you just said, by the way, was body. Believe it or not, that's the big magic word here, because that is the piece that is missing from so many traditional therapies, is the body, right? So cognitive behavioral therapy, talk therapy, it's engaging the mind. And we think, okay, well, if we need to change our mindset, don't I need to change my mind? And I always say to people, it is physiologically impossible to change your mind with your mind. So just shifting mindset does not work. So people will come into me, right? And now, I sort of have this reputation now, right, for being who I am and doing what I do. And more people, thankfully, are waking up and saying there must be a different way, right? And then there's other people who are saying, well, and I must hear this story 10 times a day. We've tried everything. I've gone to talk therapy. I've gone to cognitive behavioral therapy. I go to yoga classes. I get acupuncture twice a week. Why am I still suffering? What's missing here? And then I get other people who come in and say, can you prescribe me a pill? Because I want to make everything go away and I just want to feel good. Right? So you've got these like 3 different groups of people. And to speak to your question about, how do I get people to expand their consciousness, right? How do I get people to become awake and alert and aware? And the answer to that is through the body. And what I mean by that is this. So again, if somebody comes in, I am trying to manifest and I can't, or I am anxious all the time and I don't sleep, or I've got, an autoimmune issue and, all this other stuff. And they tell me they've tried everything. I say, okay. And what I start to do is right then and there, I bring them into their bodies. Tell me what sensation you're feeling here. Tell me about this. Tell me about that. And they're kind of like, wait, what? Why are you asking me this? I don't understand. What does my body have to do with this, right? Because they've been conditioned to believe this is in their mind. Even the physical health ailments, right? They've been taught that it's their mind, it's their mindset, right? So a lot of more, a lot of therapies now, and certainly a lot of spiritual practices, again, I put that in air quotes for a reason, which is, that a lot of these modalities are telling people, well, if you just, change your mindset, you can change your whole life. And there is some truth to that. However, there's something that even precedes mindset. There's something that comes before that. And it's not in the head, it's in the body. Our bodies, where we go, where we move throughout our day, right? That's where our body is. Our body experiences everything, first and foremost. Our mind is simply responsible for interpreting it. But it's our body that is absorbing everything that we do. We take everything in through our 5 senses, right? What do we see, hear, taste, touch, and smell? That's how we're taking in the world, right? And what happens in our body is sensation. And we're nothing more than energy in our bodies, right? We're nothing more than circuitry in the body. And so, when I start to tell people, okay, go into your body and what do you notice? Oh, there's tingling in my hands. Oh, good. You know what that is? That's energy. Here's what energy has to do with things. And I start right there teaching them. And their eyes are like, wow. And one of the things I hear all day long, and I swear this is going to be the title of one of my next books, why didn't anyone tell me this? Because people say this to me all day long. when I share this information. Why didn't anyone ever tell me this? How did I not know this at any point in my life, that my body was a part of this, that my nervous system, right? If my nervous system has stuck flight or fight energy, I'm going to experience what my brain is going to call anxiety, right? Why didn't anyone tell me that anxiety is really just stored and stuck survival stress, right? Why didn't anyone tell me that when I'm not feeling well and my immune system is compromised, it's because my nervous system is dysregulated? Why didn't anyone tell me this, right? And so there's people out there doing good things. They're trying, right? Like you said, they're going to meditation, they're doing the yoga, they're doing all these practices that are wonderful. But if they're not taking into account where their body is at a certain time, for instance, if your nervous system is stuck in fight or flight and you go try to sit and meditate, guess what? It ain't happening, right? And then that person feels, well, gosh, I'm trying, I'm meditating, I'm doing what they told me to do, and it's not working, right? Because a lot of meditation practitioners do not talk about the nervous system, do not engage the body, right? Same thing with yoga teachers. I'm a certified yoga teacher. I work with yogis all day long. And it's amazing to me how many are so in the dark about this, right? And they're teaching people to move their bodies, but they're not teaching people to be attuned to their bodies, right? So, you said something before, about the body and accessing ourselves. If we're living only in our mind, our body's just along for the ride. We don't even know we have a body until it's like screaming out at us in pain.
Yeah.
So this approach, again, is about saying, okay, wait a second. Yes, mindset. Yes, I get all of that, right? Thoughts do become things. That's true. But we have to take it a step back and go back to, again, the essence of what it means to be in this human body. And in this human body, we are nothing more than a system of electrical circuitry, and it forms into a nervous system. And if we don't learn how that nervous system works,
right,
and we don't make it work for us, we will stay sick. We will stay stuck.
Yeah. The word holistic, there's no one silver bullet. Everything works by law. I believe that, we're divine creatures. We're designed perfectly. Yes. And it will do what it's supposed to do, giving it the right resources. And what are the resources? They're infinite. It's walking out in the grass with your feet, being connected to the energy of the earth. People think that's woo-woo. No, but we're energy.
Right.
My greatest thing that gives me that, I'm ADHD, and ADD, so I could get a little like this all the time. So what calms me is I go by water and I connect with water, and it calms my energy fields in alignment with water. And everybody has different ways that they sense that. It could be just walking in the woods or walking on the grass or, just being around flowers or whatever. But nature has a great healer, as being connected.
Yeah.
So, and our hydration, our nutrition, and exercise, and all the things that are necessary. There's no one silver, but they got to work together. I think that's what holistic. Everything is coming together in a natural state, letting your body, like you said there, you're accessing your inner medicine, the inner doctor within you.
Yes.
Did I state that correctly? I hope
you did. No, you did. That was awesome. No, and it's really powerful. And I just wanted to comment on what you were saying before about that process of earthing, right? Going out barefoot in the grass. And it's funny because we're hearing about these things more and more, but the piece missing is that nobody's teaching why it works, right? And so that's why people are left with the idea that it's this woo-woo thing. Yeah, because they don't understand the science, right? And so that's where I try to teach people and say, look, you know why it feels so good out in nature? And you know why if you take your socks and shoes off and you put your feet on the earth, the electrons are coming in from the earth's crust and are absorbing into your body. And excess of electrons versus protons make for a healthy cell in the body. when
The
people
sun
hear,
doing the same thing.
right,
All that
right.
energy is
Yeah. So when people
fueling
hear the
our energy.
science, they're like, oh, okay, now it makes sense. Whereas before, they don't want to try it, right? So that's another thing that I use with people who are, maybe new to this, or to get them to see another way. It's, let me teach you some science, right? So I call it like, okay, let me teach you human biology 101, right? What does a cell need? What is a cell made up of, right? So I feel some days like I'm teaching, an intro bio class in a school, because we need this. We don't know this. We need to know this, but we've gotten so far away. And again, this isn't rocket science. It's just knowing how we're made and knowing what we need in order to thrive. So that's that inner medicine that we're all equipped with. People don't know, for instance, that humans have a capacity for something called autophagy, which is our cells eating themselves, right? And so people don't understand that that's a real thing, that we could actually clean ourselves out from cancer cells. People don't know that we could actually clean our brains of the white plaque that builds up, causing dementia and Alzheimer's. So again, if people are educated, then they will know. And once you know, you can't unknow that. And then the choice is yours. You do with it what you want, right?
Exactly. And that's where you own your own health. You take responsibility through diligence, asking questions. Don't just take things on face value. And I trust doctors for what they do. And, if I break my leg or need a procedure, man, I'm all grateful that they can do that.
Yes.
And there's a place for pharmaceuticals, but nature can replicate and do a lot of that, because a lot of pharmaceuticals come from plants anyway. So people don't even realize that. They're just synthesizing them, and it's contrary to what your body really needs. So if you can do it in a natural way to get the same benefit, you're working in harmony with science, your body's science.
Right.
I just want to recognize some people here, Roga. Thanks, Jay, for your comments. You're a wonderful guy. Robert coming in here, Ted Legal. Thanks for showing up and share this out, guys. This is sort of my tribe that's out there.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Yes.
Yeah, great guys. And there's been a lot of people coming and going. So I just encourage people to tag and share this out there. So this whole program, we're not giving a solution for any one thing or the magic bullet, but just bring a different level of awareness. And you're doing a wonderful job on that. I'd like to, we talk about the holistic thing and the ancient wisdom with contemporary science and how this all comes together, your journey, recognizing checking the boxes in a matrix formula for healthcare or mental health care isn't the answer. It may help you profile it, but it isn't really the answer. Would you agree?
Agree, 100%. Yeah. And it's not, I wanted to speak to one of the comments. I think it was Jay who said, there's a big difference between masking a problem and healing it. And, this checkbox matrix, right? Yeah, there it is. There's a difference between masking the symptoms and healing the problem, right? And, these matrices of symptoms that are out there, these checklists, right, that are so focused on a symptom, there's no mention of root cause, right? It's just, so we're staying on the surface, right, without really getting in deeper. And so I also call what I do, right, root cause psychology, because it's getting to the essence of the thing, right? It's getting to the essence of the problem. What we see on the surface is just the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much more under the surface. And it's not until we get to under the surface that we can actually heal ourselves. And that's what this approach is all about. And that's what does set this approach apart from others that are really just band-aiding.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your book, because, I admire, is this your first book, the one we're going to be talking about here?
It is. It is my first book. Yep. Rewilding.
Congratulations. I have to make a plug and a compliment, or a compliment and a plug. My wife just finished her first book, in and around what she does, the soul of ethical service, who we show up as, how we develop our mores, our character, our values, and who we show up in a professional manner. And she teaches that. So I know how much work it goes to put together a book, and I have to compliment anybody that's done a book.
Thank you.
It's not an easy thing to do it right and all that time. Congratulations. Let's bring up your book and we'll talk about that. Okay. That's a plug for my wife, by the way.
Yeah, no, I love it. And that book sounds amazing. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, I'll get you that information. It basically launches the 30th officially. So.
Oh, incredible. That's awesome. Yes, it is. It is definitely a challenge that, I certainly never realized, it was never my plan to write a book. This was not ever what I thought would be in the cards for me, it just kind of happened in part because, mostly, I shouldn't say in part, mostly from clients who kept saying to me, the world needs to hear your story, right? Because when I was sitting with clients, I'm an open book and I'm always sharing my journey, right? And as I said, I was living this parallel process, with clients. And so I was sharing my journey. And I always believe, again, I can't take people deeper than I'm willing to go myself. So I need to show them that I'm doing my work. And one night I had a client. She at the time was a teenager. She was about 16 at the time. And it was like, I swear, it was like she was channeling a message for me. And she got up, and before we hugged, we usually always would embrace at the end of a session. And before we did, she took my hands and she looked in my eyes and she said, "Kristy, the world is waiting to hear your story. The world needs to hear it. Tell your story." And I just looked in her eyes and I said, "Okay, I will." And the next day I started writing this book. And so again, it was not, any plan. And I thought as I was writing, what actually am I doing? But it really just unfolded. And I've been writing since I was 12, keeping journals, keeping diaries. I would also write a lot of music, write a lot of songs, and never did anything with it. And along my healing journey, I also would have diaries. And so after every session I would have with a psychologist or a healer, I would be writing down and taking notes and processing. And so I took all of that and, transcribed a lot of it for the book. And it was seriously the most cathartic, therapeutic thing I've ever done. And I have experienced every kind of therapy that's out there. And writing my story had the most power. And the original manuscript was about 4,000 pages. And it was like, I remember sending boxes and boxes to my editor. And she's like, "Kristy, nobody's going to read this, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know." I said,
"You're writing Gone with the Wind, right?"
Yeah, exactly. I said, "I just have to do this for me. First and foremost, this is for me." And it was really unpacking the memories, the trauma, what I thought I resolved, all the shadows that were inside of me that I thought I made peace with that I didn't. And it was bringing it all to the surface and allowing myself to experience it in a new way, and then extrapolate the wisdom from those wounds so that I could share it with people. And so that's how this book came to be. And, I always say, like, I could write a textbook. Give me a week, I could write a textbook about any topic, you name it, I could do it, right? I write classes and workshops in a night. Writing a memoir is a whole different thing. And so I appreciate you acknowledging the work that goes into it, because
absolutely,
it's a challenge.
Yeah. From a huge manuscript to a couple hundred pages, probably 150, 200 pages in your book. So,
right. Right.
Yeah, I have to commend anybody, and anybody that's out there. And you mentioned some things. I think it's really important. Myself, being a personal development coach, I encourage people to write, because it triggers our thinking different when we have a neural connectivity when we write. Not typing, that doesn't do anything.
No.
In the brain.
Writing.
This physical neural connectivity changes
Correct.
creativity. It gets you more in touch with things.
Right.
You think differently. You're probably thinking properly, is the way I put it. So
yeah,
I encourage anybody
agree.
out there.
I couldn't agree more.
Write what you're feeling. because it causes you to really get in touch with yourself at a level that you probably have never experienced. I encourage that in my coaching. That's one of the things helping people grow is do this thing. This is your genius factor. This
Yes.
the pen.
Yep.
Those that write outperform those that don't in any area of life, whether it be in their health side, whether it be in their professional career, whether it be their spiritual life, whether it be in family and relationships. Those that write grow differently. And I know that for a fact. There's science behind that. So it's not woo out there. So
yeah,
I just encourage anybody that's for part of your therapy, explore yourself through writing.
Yes.
It comes up.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't want to see it, but you go, I own it. Hey, great. Now what can I do differently to change the reality that I want for myself? So I'm getting into my thing, but anyway.
No, but I couldn't agree more. And that is a big part of what I do is helping people through writing, through journaling, through writing, exploratory writing. And almost all of my initial manuscript was handwritten. And I handwrite every single day. I think it's the only way. You know, everybody now, especially the teenagers I work with, they're like, can I just type on my phone? And I said, no, please, no, put the phone down. So, Jay, you're trying to write a book about life experience. Oh, well.
Yeah, he's got a great story. I don't know if you know Jay, but he's a very well recognized radio disc jockey out there. He's retired now, but he's on different paths and different journeys. Amazing guy. Thanks, Jay, for jumping on. And I look forward to read your book too. So I look
forward to, and if Jay, if I can help in any way or just be some moral support, because it's a big task, and it's a wow experience, as you said. So good luck to you for sure.
Yeah. So we got a couple more comments here. Thanks, Robert. I got another thing here. People can get your book. I'm going to put how they can contact you. I think we'll get that. The banner that's scrolling below, is that the information? Did I spell everything correctly? I didn't get my dyslexia in the way. So
no, it looks good. Yep. Kristy at KristyVanacore.com. That's my email. KristyVanacore.com is my website. The book is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. A lot of local booksellers have it, anywhere books are sold. And, although it's my story and the subtitle is A Woman's Quest to Remember Her Roots, Rekindle Her Instincts, and Reclaim Her Sovereignty, it really is for anyone. It's for men and for women. I have several male clients of mine who've read it and really have gotten a lot of wisdom out of it. And I say that because a few people have asked me, well, it says A Woman's Quest, so is it not for men? Oh, Crystal, I love you.
Thanks for jumping on, Crystal.
Crystal's one of my tribe. You have your tribe, Tom. Crystal's one of my tribe, and I couldn't be luckier. She's amazing.
I can share this out with everybody. Kristy is awesome. I love her message, the energy you bring, your authenticity, all those things. We live in a culture of, there's a lot going on, and especially in the areas like you mentioned young people. I did an interview with another psychologist here recently, and the challenges that youth are going through today.
Yeah.
It's, I'm speaking generationally now. It's different than when I grew up in the 50s and 60s. The types of pressure. Yeah, we had pressures and we had bullies, but we had a different way to deal with it. We didn't have all this electronic stuff that trying to define who we are, and we just figured it out, right? We got connected with nature, and we just figured it out. Yeah. So, but what's the one thing that you would say to parents out there? Because parents a lot of time are in denial that their children are having difficulties. They don't want to think, oh, my child has, quote, something mental going on, whatever that means. They just have something going on, right? They just need to figure out what the root cause is, right? So what do you, that is a big crisis out there, especially with the young ladies. I'm starting to see these statistics, and it's heartbreaking what's going on out there. What would you just share out there for the what are some of the signals? What are the things you can do to bring awareness to a parent or people that see the children struggling? How can they intervene in a way that's not intrusive in privacy and those things, but just true concern?
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you're asking about that, because you're right. There is such a crisis with our kids. I mean, I think all humans are in crisis right now, but when I look at kids, and I have, I have two kids of my own. I have two boys. I have a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old. And so I see it firsthand with them, and I see it every day, in my office. And it's really tragic. And you brought up some of the reasons, right? The technology and some of the same reasons that I mentioned earlier that are bringing us as adults away from ourselves, right? Everything is outside of ourselves. It's tuning in, tapping into technology, tapping into what everybody else is doing. And it brings us further and further away from ourselves, right? And so, I work with many, many teenagers and many families. I do a lot of work with parents. And one of the biggest pieces of advice that I give, and it's sometimes very surprising when I say this to people, right? Because when parents come to me, they're like, okay, how can I help my kid? What do I need to do right now to help my kid? Or here, they bring their kids to me, you fix my kid, send them home repaired, I get that a lot. And one of the first things that I tell parents is you have to look at yourself first. And not everybody likes when I say that, because again, they're looking for that quick fix, which again, like I said before, we've all been conditioned to believe exists, right? If I take this magic pill or I press this magic button, I can make everything better and everything go away. And so they want the quick fix. And when I turn around and say, well, you've got to look at your own self and your own journey first, because how on earth can you model anything for your kids? Same like I said before, where I can't ask my clients to go deeper than I'm willing to go myself.
Right.
As a parent, we can't ask that of our kids. I can't put an expectation on my kid, to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. This is a really silly example, but it's just one that popped into my mind, right? Like, my younger son is in this like phase, going to be going into 7th grade. And all these kids are, using cuss words and everything. And sometimes I'm like, stop cursing. And he looks at me, he's like, well, Mom, you do it. And I'm like, oh shit. So just a silly example, but it really is for parents, first and foremost, about looking at themselves, because part of it is looking at what their children's behaviors are triggering in them, right? Some of what our kids are going through, even though it looks a lot different than when you and I were younger, for sure, this is where we're at. This is their life. As much as I hate it, I want to take every video game that was ever made away from my boys, right? But I can't do that. These are the times they're living in. So part of when I teach rewilding, it's like, okay, rewilding doesn't mean pull the plug on everything, go out and live in a tent in the woods, or better yet, just sleep under a tree. This is saying, how can we take the ancient wisdom and integrate it with our current life? But it has to start with us as parents. It has to. And in doing that, it will allow us to look at our children differently, to trust that our children are on their own path and have to learn a lot of this for themselves too. Right? Yeah, they're on their own journey, and we can't micromanage, because then we're taking their empowerment away, right? The same way that I'm saying, doctors disenfranchise us, and the system and the conditioning takes our empowerment away. We don't want to do the same for our kids.
And unfortunately, in that conversation I had with another interview, and it's a lot of parents. You said two things that are really important, I think. And when we say look at ourselves and, how can we become better? If we become better, everything around us becomes better. Our children, we want them to do what we say, but that isn't how life works. They do what they see.
They do what they
model
see.
That. It's not what you say, it's what they see, and they respond or react accordingly. It depends on lots of other factors. But is that a lot of parents want to micromanage, give the answers for the kids and let the child figure it out, because she shared something with me that just blew me away, is that, oh, Mom, I forgot my homework assignment. What do I do?
Yep.
I mean, everything that they do in their life, they got to ask somebody.
Exactly.
And that isn't development. That's
Right.
disempowerment. We got to
Exactly.
learn by what? The struggles, the challenge that life is life, and it
Yep.
is a process. And that's really, I didn't realize, I guess you would call that helicopter parents at the highest level,
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah.
there hovering over everything you do and telling you
Yeah.
what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, and never why to do it, but
Right.
those type of things. So do you see
Right.
that?
But part of that is coming from the society we're living in, right? Where we're being conditioned and domesticated to outsource everything and not trust our own intuition.
Yes.
Right. So these kids are learning that, right? Our kids are learning, oh, what do I wear today? Let me ask a friend. What do I feel like doing today? Let me ask my mom. You know how many kids sit in my office and say, like, I don't even know how I feel about this. I'm numb. I feel nothing. They're so detached and disconnected. But the parents are also, because again, we're all running around in this hyperkinetic world, right? And everybody's talking about ADHD. Well, ADHD is it's a symptom of this hyperkinetic world that we're living in. We're all ADHD right now because our brain is being asked to process exponential amounts of data that it never had to ever before in history.
Right.
And we are struggling to adapt to that. And our children are coming in this world and they're being bombarded at lightning speed when their nervous systems are just developing, right? By the way, one other piece I want to add too is when I was talking about why it starts with the parents first, is that people, again, this is human biology 101 and human neuroscience 101, nervous systems co-regulate. So if we want to help our children regulate their nervous system, which again, nervous system regulation is the key to all health and wellness. If we want to help our kids regulate, but we ourselves are dysregulated, and these kids are around us all the time, we're not helping them, right? So it's this dynamic process that has to work together, whereby it's through our nervous system regulation that we can provide that blueprinting for our children and offer them the best support. But we are all in this world right now where our nervous systems are completely stuck in such a dysregulated state, either hyper aroused, where we're in that manic and panic state all the time, or a state of hypo arousal, which is down, where we can't move and get out of bed. It's something like 70% of people are on antidepressants because they don't have motivation. They don't have drive. They have apathy. They can't. And it's a total freeze and fawn response of the nervous system. But no one's teaching them that. So they believe, I'm just depressed. I don't have what it takes. These kids are sleeping on their parents' couches through their 30s and 40s, not going out and getting jobs. I mean, I could go on and on. I don't want to get on my soapbox, but it is such a systemic problem now that is spanning, it's across the lifespan. And I really do believe it starts with so much education, bringing us back to the essence of what it means to be human, learning about our energetics, bioenergetics, and our nervous system, how it works together so you can make it work for you at any age and stage of life.
Right. And I believe it's just once you're aware, you work proactively and you do those things, lifestyle changes necessary to work on yourself so you can influence those around you in a better way. And we can, in nutrition and diet and exercise and all things we've been talking about, the holistic is so important. I just appreciate, we can talk all day.
Yes.
You're talking my language right here. But in closing here, what would be the one thing that you would just like to leave with the audience today? Because I tell you what, an hour goes in a hurry, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. I know we could talk all day. There's so much more to say, and you can tell, like, I'm so passionate about this. So I could go on and on. I think the biggest thing that I want that's coming up for me right now is that people need to question everything that you've been told, everything that you've been taught, Everything that you think that you're getting from the media and from our, leaders, all of it, question everything. Challenge it, ask questions, get yourself educated. If you do not know how the human mind, body, spirit system works, learn it as fast as you can, while you still have access to this information. Learn it so that you can own your own health and reclaim what's yours. That's your inherent sovereignty.
Yeah. Ask the questions, and I believe that's that's how you transform. You got to ask questions. It brings a new level of awareness, a new perspective than ever before. And most people don't, like you said. But you said when we're talking about the holistic and tied with science and that, I always encourage people, don't use Dr. Google for anything related to science. Use research engines like, if you got, how does yoga mind work with XYZ? Go to PubMed.gov or Scholar Google. These are research engines on the science side. When somebody shows you something, validate it. Just don't take what's out there, because I can put something up there and sound like I'm an expert, and I'm not.
Right.
So, I think when you're asking the questions, know where to get the information that's validated.
Yes, absolutely. And also don't forget to trust the wisdom of your own inner guru, right? I tell people all the time, you are your own guru. Be your own guru. Trust your intuition. Become so deeply connected with your body that and your mind and your spirit, again, that regulation, so that you can access the deepest wisdom that you possess, which is your intuition and your connection with your higher self. So that's there for you all the time. Thank you, Jay.
Jay, thanks a lot. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for coming on. Well, as much as I hate to say this is the end, we have to cut it short, but hold tight for a few minutes, and I'll just wrap her up and we'll come back. And so I appreciate you. I'm so grateful that you came on. I love your energy, like I shared, your authenticity, and a different approach to health. And I appreciate what you're sharing out there. You're making a difference in the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you. So that is Own Your Own Health. That's Kristy Vanacore. Powerful message, powerful information. I encourage you to get her book. Share this out with other people. If we just impact one person in a way that they start asking those questions and start trusting themselves, just like some things he says, we can make a difference in the world. But it's through that ripple effect. Let's drop the pebble in the lake and just let it ripple out. So with that all said, own your own health. We'll see you next week. No, I apologize. That is, I'm not doing any interviews next week. The holiday weekend, people are on the road, so we'll catch you the following week. I believe it's the 13th on Own Your Own Health. God bless everybody.